bristly as a bristle, and it's not as soft as this inside.
Can I see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of used and beaten up in
yeah.
recent days, but it was once good.
Sorry, I need to stick that in your face.
It's okay.
Okay. And then these guys I love too. I got these on Amazon randomly. They're like $7 for a bunch of them. I don't have expensive brushes because honestly, I just don't.
Sarah?
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Up and down. No, I can see. That's okay. You feel this good.
No, you're not even close to being in the way.
this is why I work on the iPad, because you can zoom in.
Oh.
Details. So that's important. All right, so I always start with the eye. And I have my colors mixed up here. I have my black, brown, and blue. I have a purple mixture. I have a variety of little yellowy brown mixtures. And these are yellowy brown with white. This is more of a reddish brown. This is a blue gray, which is just this with a little white added to it and a little bit more blue. And I think this was white with whatever was on my palette, which is a Mod Podge of everything. So, where is my little green brush?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course, ask
Did you
me.
paint the bottom of that gray, your
No, it
glass?
came that way. It's made by New Wave Art, Posh something.
Huh. I was gonna put gray palette paper underneath.
You can
mine.
do
It's
that.
nice.
You could just get a clear piece of glass and just get like pink paper or blue paper. Or
But I like the gray, mine's still white and it's,
I used white for a long time, and then I wanted to like spruce my life up a little, and we got
I think it
gray.
helps you with the values.
I like it. Now the perks to using gray is you can see the color vibrancy a little bit more because it's against a neutral, but I like white too. You know, I grew up just using white palette and it was fine. Everything has its pros and cons. So we're gonna start with this eye. So we have all my values are here, like I did with my charcoal, the lights and the darks. And this is just the black I'm starting with. Now since this is all dry, I can go right in and put in my black where I see it. And this is gonna be harder for you guys to see because it's black on black, but I promise you. we're
Now,
excited.
was the black you laid down originally, was that acrylic or
This is
oil?
acrylic because I just
Okay.
needed it to dry, and I always do it in acrylic because usually I'll plop my oil painting right on top afterwards.
Mhm.
So I do want it to dry.
What do you mix for your black?
Brown and blue, ultramarine blue, and today's brown is burnt sienna. Sometimes I'll do umber, sometimes I'll do Van Dyke brown. Really, it's whatever brown I have handy, as long as it's a dark brown. So you wouldn't want to use like a raw sienna or something like that because it's a little bit lighter and more yellowy. Okay, so I'm fairly mindful with my first layer. I'm not kind of just haphazardly throwing things too much on. This area where it's very fluffy and chaotic, then I can. But the more thought you put down for your initial layer, the less thought you have to do later.
And who took the picture? The owner
Oh,
or
this is
you?
from the owner.
Okay.
It's a very nice photo.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it. So I've restated my darks, and now I'm gonna start by putting in the iris colors. So raw sienna, burnt siennas, it's a lot of orangey tones. So I actually have cadmium red and cadmium yellow mixed up. That was a little side color that I just plopped. So we're gonna stick that in where I see it. And I want you to think just very graphic at this point. You know, nothing has to be blended quite yet. Everything has the time to blend a little bit later. I used to be blend happy and just would blend until everything would just be one color. And then what's the point? So you have to limit how much you do blend. Now with the acrylic, things dry quick, so you don't have to worry about over blending to the point of smoothness because it will just dry out very quickly. So even just with my iris in general, granted it is a larger eye, even those eyes over there, they're pretty dark from where I'm sitting, but there is stuff happening in them. The photograph was just a big black blob of just not good picture quality. But our job as the artist is to make it better than the photo. So the color I'm using right now is just a little bit more of a grayer blue version. I didn't even clean my brush necessarily. I am just putting in an area that I see is just being not as loud of an orange. because blue is the opposite of orange, and it will neutralize it. I'm using a little brush purposely so I can be very mindful on where things are going to be placed, because if I have too much paint down, at some point I'd have to wipe it away if I did want to actually go in and change something. So if you have too much paint down, that's not necessarily always a good thing. Okay, let's let there be light now. King's blue, Lily white, the reflection, which is all just bright sky. I'm gonna get that in there. I'm gonna try somewhat to follow the shape that there is. Everything's always a little curved and wonky because it is a curved structure. It's an eyeball. And then down below we have a little bit of what looks like ground. I don't know what that is. We don't need to know what it is. We just need to know it's there. And I see a lot more dark still. Wash and dry. Sometimes if I wash my brush and grab it in here, I see that there's a little bit more of a very wet puddle. So if I grab it and if I just feel like it's going to be very transparent or drippy, I just lay my brush down a little bit. I do the same thing with watercolor, and I just let some of the moisture seep out of my brush and into the paper towel. Here it's a little darker, so I'm just dabbing in some of the dark where I see it. The more you dab, the more that black doesn't turn black anymore, because it's mushing with all the colors that are around it. And then wash and dry for the moment. I'm gonna let that just kind of settle there. I could soften it, but I want to get the rest of the surrounding eye area in. Now here, a lot of people will just use gray, like white, black, or something, but it's a wet spot. So when in doubt, if you're painting a wet nose or a wet part of the eye, do it with a very pale blue, because that is going to make everything a lot more realistic. You can see a little bit more blue up here. It's a very faint line. A lot of the times people will ask what size brush mine is. I don't even know. It wore off, but it's a little one. But I don't think you necessarily need to have like the tiniest brush in the world. You don't need a brush that says, it's nice to, but you don't need to. It's a matter of also how much pressure you're putting down on your brush. So if I push really hard, I'm gonna get a broader stroke. If I push very gently, I get a smaller stroke. So I can definitely get a thin line very easily without having a one-haired brush. So, in fact, when I do little hairs, I don't even use a rigger brush anymore. A rigger brush is a very long, thin brush. I just don't. I use a flat brush. So the same colors I used in here, I'm going to also use down in this outer eye skin area. So I'm going to put that in. I know everyone in their head right now is like, oh my god, that's so purple. What is she doing? It's okay. It's like when Bob Ross puts that big tree in the middle of the painting. It'll come out okay. Going back in with my black, there's a little bit of dark separating that little bit of light that I put in and our new purpley craze. And this is when I'll probably start to move to a larger brush. So, larger meaning just somewhat larger, not anything too big. So, I like flat brushes and angled brushes. I love angled one, but flat brushes are just as good. So, I'm going to go always in the direction of the hair, but I don't necessarily need it to be actual, literal hair. And that's one reason I use a flat brush too, is to allow myself to just get plain changes, color, value, without making it too focused on every little tiny hair yet. As long as your brush strokes go in the direction that they need to, that is the main thing. It's too blue, too brown, too dark. Here we have some darks up here. I like the iPad too, because you can drape it over your canvas. As long as you have the thicker canvas, it's wonderful. Sometimes I'll use two colors on my palette and combine them into a little third color. I have all my ingredients here. If you feel like it's just like cooking, if you feel something's too this or that, you alter it. Colors are gonna look different when they're next to other colors than they will on your palette. So you might think you have the best color in the world, you might be completely wrong. There's only one way to find out. I'm also being very light with my touch here and there. So let's put a little bit of our light in now. So if you notice, I'm kind of branching out from my main area, and I always usually do that because number one, I like to start with the eye, but I want to just kind of travel along, because if I see this color here and I put it over here, it's too overwhelming. Don't overwhelm yourself. So if you just kind of go one section at a time and work your way around, your life will be easier. So hear how I blend these together. I'm still going in the direction of the fur. I'm not mindfully putting in the fur. So in between these two, going in the direction of the fur. And turn my brush as well. If I turn it this way, I can get a little bit of a thinner stroke, but still not literal fur. Now here's a little redder, so we're going to put in red. And it's a little darker around it, so we're going to put in dark. And that kind of travels down here. I'm always squinting. You guys can't see my eyes, but I am squinting my eyes. If you wear glasses, take them off. For real, because then you won't see the hairs, and then you won't paint the hairs. Like half the time, I'm just like, I paint it like that. See that color there? That seemed fine on my palette.
That's some beautiful color over there.
Which one? This one? Oh, that's just burnt sienna with dirty brush that touched it.
Looks like gold. It looks like copper from here. Doesn't it?
Oh, it does, yeah.
A little bit of purple it starts to turn into. So I'm always aware of color changes. Now this is a brown dog, but I did not use one brown with white added to it 10 million different times. One's a little yellowier, one's a little redder. Here it starts to get a little purplier. So I'm always aware of, and that's why I work section by section, of how does a color morph into the next area? Does it get cooler? Does it get lighter? Does it get softer? Is it distinct edge? Is it a soft edge? All those things are going on in my head. And that's why to simplify it and break it down to a certain area will just make your life easier. So up here it's a little, this is very taupey. This is more Riz alive. So we're gonna take some yellow, we're gonna take some white. And here this looks like not the right color, but let's see what it looks like up here. So it's a little yellow, we're gonna add a little orange to it and just see where that takes us, because I want to try and get some sort of warm, rich color that might not necessarily read properly on the palette, but it could read properly more on your canvas. And I would just continue this whole process around the whole area. But I started very mindfully with the eye, because that is the most important part. Even if your eyes are dark and small. In fact, let me show you the picture from that one I was just working on. This was what I had to work on for that.
Wow.
So nothing is happening in here. It's just a dark hole of nothingness. So our job is to make it better. So I just had to make up stuff, and you know, you figure it out. But you know, our job is to always give it a little bit more than what's there.
You ever paint them in person?
I have that like one or two in person, but very quick, like
Yeah.
because they're not sitting still. Cats are easier.
And I couldn't.
They'll just lay there. But dogs, unless they're older and you know whatnot, they're not gonna sit still.
Yeah, cats would be on your lap, so you'd have to do close-ups.
There you go, right? But you know, so same thing here. See how I'm turning my flat brush and I'm putting in the illusion of a fur feeling, but not doing every stroke of the fur. So you can get, where are you? So you can
Too
get
close.
that feeling like you were talking about with the fur, but you know, just just watch how much you do, because here we can get it a little bit more chunky and tonal, plane changes. But here, like we can, here, let me do a section over here so you guys can see that. Here we can get a little bit more flingy and fun. You just have to still maintain your values. So here, if this is light here, this isn't even the same as this, so it's pointless for me to even look over there. To make this stand out, I have to have dark underneath it and around it. So if I take some of my dark, too moist, absorb some of it out, and I kind of go in between and put in some of that dark, that's gonna help make the light chunks look like they are either A in front of it, or just maybe it's an actual color difference. And even though this reads as so like free and loose and whatever, it's easy, this is look way harder to me than this. So, because there's no set plan. With a longer haired dog or subject, it's trickier. I love doing short haired dogs because you can just have it read very plainer and brush strokey and have it be fine, whereas with a longer haired dog, you have to really get that sense of movement of the long hairs, but it has to still read with lights and darks. And that guy was pretty tricky because he has long hair and it's all white, but it's like, how dark do you go on a white dog? You still have to have those dark values, but it just has to be dark enough to read as a white subject still with like three-dimensional feeling. So, but anyway, so that's what you guys are gonna do. Now, if you wanted to soften a little bit, that's fine. You're gonna take your paper towel or an apron or something with a soft, dry brush. Now in here, I might use a little bit of a smaller brush. I left my favorite brush at home by the kitchen sink because I was working on this. And then my little guy wanted to paint. So I was setting him up. And then he did a stroke over here and I was like, no, mamas, don't touch, please.
How old is he?
He'll be 3.
Oh.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is very gently with a dry, clean brush, I'm just tapping and introducing one color into the next. We're just having a soft edge. So I'm not blending, I'm not going even in a different direction necessarily. I'm just doing light feathering, just slight little taps here and there, not everywhere, because we don't want everything to read as a very crisp edge or a very soft edge. We want a blend of both. And I didn't really put any strong whites in there. I usually don't till the very end, but I do want to kind of show you what a little bit more light in there will eventually look like. It's so wet right now, which is why I put it on later. I kind of have to blob it on at the moment just to be able to do what I need it to do.
So how are you gonna handle the background now?
Now the background here, there's all these lines, I don't like that. So what I plan on doing is, see how here I have a little bit darker. This dark will make this light stand out. This dark will also make this very bit of rim light, which I actually didn't do here, but it is here, stand out. But it's not too dark to where it competes with the darks on the dog. So what I actually plan on doing is a very similar color to this back here. So it has some of its colors within here. It's just a very neutral color because the dog is very orangey, we'll say. And it's also a hue of blue. So it's that blue gray, which will make the orange still stand out a little bit and still gives a little bit of color to the background, but it's not in your face crazy.
But with the long hairs on the right side, you're gonna
Oh,
go
okay.
in between it, then in.
So this is how I handle that. So what I do is let me get this color. So I'll put down a color. It's too, here it looked light because it was against gray. But up there it's too dark. So I will put down a color and then I'll go a little bit in between. Let me do this section so you can see it. And I would do this all in the first layer, first plop. Always, my first plop always gets done the whole thing in one sitting. Because right now it looks like someone had a really rough hair day. So what we want to do is plop an adequate amount of paint where you feel like you're going to do it. And I always shorten the amount of hair because then I could always fling more in later. So since we're still in plop chunk mode, we're going to take some of our colors, we're going to gently fling it out a little bit more. notice I'm drying my brush often, and then I'm gonna go back in and very lightly just soften.
Mm.
So it reads just very soft hair-like. Not cookie cutter crisp, not rough. It has to read as something very soft. I'm going with a darker color too in some of these areas. And then when this dries, when I do a second layer, I'll do some variations in strokes and soften it because I usually do the background and whatnot when I do my second layer. But the last layer, when I do all my details, I go in with a little bit of a thinner brush and I do put in some of these little delicate lines that right now I'm just working wet on wet, but they are there. Let me point them out on that guy. I'm so glad I had this one around to be able to bring it. So, like these little strokes, those little guys, these little strokes, these little guys, I just used a little thinner brush later, like these little guys, that thing up there. So those are what I did more towards the end. Now some dogs require more than others. Since this has this whole mane thing over here, after that dries, after a second layer, I'd go in and do a longer bristle brush or a really nice flat brush, but turn it sideways and get my long strokes that way, which is usually what I do. And then you can get just a few of those little fine-tuned hairs. But this area is so soft, and you don't want to draw too much attention over here. You want the attention to always be where, like in my case, I always like to go to the eyes. So you still want this to remain somewhat soft. Your eye is going to go to a crisp edge, a hard edge, a more contrasted area versus a soft area. So you can have most of the softness here. This, I would not keep this crisp. I would have this color and then blend it a little bit. Let me show you that so I can. So say this is my background here. And we have some of that color. Okay. Say I have all that in. Okay, pretend that's everywhere. Then, since I don't want that viewer to go over here, because especially since the dog is right here, I don't want a lot of stuff happening. So plop, plop, plop. I could even go probably a little bit darker in some spots. Minimize too much of your contrast though. And then, right now it's still very crisp, so I'm gonna overblend it. So it gives it that kind of, what do they call it, bokeh in a photo?
Like where the background's not in focus, yeah.
The blurry background. So here, dry, dry, dry. Dry, dry, dry. Dry, dry. Different directions, back and forth. I still have a background versus body feel. It's not just complete out of focus, but the more you blend, the more you can control how much you want that just to recede. So this will come forward if this is very soft. So I would keep like all this like really crisp and whatnot. But anyway, so if you're ready to start plopping, I say plop away, but I want to see colors mixed up, like a lot of them, okay? Especially since a lot of you guys are oils. There's no excuse. They're not gonna dry up, okay? And if you haven't worked from an iPad, you should do it. Like, get an iPad and work from it. It makes the biggest difference. I noticed such a change with my own artwork when I started working from an iPad, just for the sake of you're competing with the backlit image, which is impossible to win over, but it forces you to push things a little further, and you can zoom in. And you're not buying
And you can do
zoom in.
zoom in.
Yeah, which is so great, because I mean, like when I was working from the photograph, you can't do that. It's been a while since I worked from a photograph, so
It's a
yeah.
sweet face.
It's a cute face. I wish I remembered
He
the
or
name.
she, I don't know.